Hello everybody, my name is Travis, and once again I am excited to make this video for you. It is a really great one. By now you should all be familiar with using Sass for pre-processing CSS. If you're not, that's okay. Check out this video here to learn about what pre-processing is. And check out this video here to learn about how I use my favorite preprocessor, Sass. And also check out this video here. It's called Gangnam Style. You watch it for the first time because it's obvious that you've been living under a rock for the past 3 years. I'm just playing. But for the rest of you, I have got an awesome video that's gonna flipping blow your minds. Today I'll be showing you bourbon, and very exciting, I have Kyle Fiedler here from Thoughtbot, the makers of bourbon, to talk to us about it. After which I'll be stepping us through getting set up and started with these awesome tools. So say hello to Kyle.
Okay, Kyle. Hey, thank you so much for joining us here on Dev Tips. We're looking at bourbon and a lot of the products that go along with it, bitters and refills and neat. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what your relationship is to these products and who else is really involved with this?
So yeah, I've been involved with almost all of them. Bourbon was the one that kind of kickstarted it. Phil LaPierre, one of the other designers at Thoughtbot, maintains it, and he does a really great job.
Yeah.
Basically, that grew out of a need of, at the time at Thoughtbot, we had 4 designers, and we were all kind of creating our own mix-ins and extends for each project, and they were loosely based off of, you know, the CSS3 stuff that was getting really popular. It was called, like, probably about 3 years ago now. And so each project had its own set, and so Phil did a great job of consolidating them, and then it's grown from there.
So can you describe for somebody who's never used it or seen it, like, really quickly, like what it is and why they should use it?
It's a small library of mix-ins and functions to help you get started on projects. These are all mix-ins and functions that we've found really helpful. Basically counteract a lot of the CSS3 stuff that hasn't been totally implemented. Like right now we're doing Flexbox, which hasn't been totally implemented or is implemented different ways in different browsers.
Yeah.
So we have mix-ins to kind of help alleviate writing multiple lines of CSS.
So how does Bourbon compare with something like Compass?
So Compass is a lot bigger than Bourbon. When we started out, Compass was already open source. We just felt that there was a lot in Compass that we didn't really use on every day on projects, and we wanted to keep Bourbon really small, really compact, make sure that it's stuff that you're going to use on almost every single project. So that was the whole thinking behind it. We've tried to keep it small so that there's certainly a need for Bourbon, and there's certainly a need for people who use Compass. So I like to think that they're more partners in growing the Sass community. So they serve different needs for different people.
Now that's Bourbon, kind of like a foundation for all of these other extensions of Bourbon. Can you walk us through the other ones? Neat, refills, neat bitters and refills?
Yeah, sure. So Neat came out of me and another designer at Thoughtbot, Reda. Our frustration with taking over Bootstrap sites. So I get either wireframes or something that was done with Bootstrap, and I look at the CSS or the HTML really, and the classes are all jangled in there. And I have a real passion for naming things semantically and not like grid 3.
Yeah, I think we kind of grew up in the same school, like right at the peak or the turn of the semantic web. And if you kind of came up during that era, that's going to mean a lot to you. So it's definitely cringeworthy when you see like the Uber divs and multiple classes on some type of frameworks.
So it definitely grew out of our frustration with that. So what I would end up doing is I'd go in and remove it. And at the time, I wrote 2 functions that were in Bourbon. One was a grid, a static grid, so a fixed width grid,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you can call it now. And then I later built a flexible grid based off of that. when responsive design started to become popular. And so I wrote those, and those were great for me, but every time I talked to someone about them, they'd be like, oh, those are so awesome, but I don't really get it. And so what we did with Neat was we made those simple functions into a whole grid system, so that it's really flexible. You can name your classes whatever you need to. You don't have to have these wrapping row classes if you don't need them. It's a grid system for people who don't like grid systems or don't like grid libraries.
Would you agree with the idea that it moves the grid out of the markup and into your style sheets?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's exactly what we wanted it to do. We wanted it for people I wanted it easy enough for developers who liked Bootstrap. The idea of Bootstrap of just throwing in a class into the HTML.
Mm-hmm.
So simple enough for them to do the same thing with the CSS, but then, complex enough so that me as a designer, I didn't have to use like a 960 grid system. So I wasn't fixed to a certain grid. Like you can go into Neat and change the gutter spacing, the max width, like almost anything you can change and make it your own.
That's really cool.
So that you're not fixed into this certain type of grid.
Would that come in a workflow before or after bidders? In your compiled
So
output?
bidders we're ThoughtBot is a consultant agency. We build a lot of web apps, and it's come out of, we used to have what was called Fluty, which was basically a base style sheet, so that as soon as you started a new project, it wouldn't look like, you wouldn't have Times New Roman all over the place and these really janky like flash messages.
Uh-huh.
But we found over time that was growing really stale, and we were overriding a lot of it. So we'd have these Fluty styles, and then we'd override them in CSS later, and that is extra cruft that we don't want in the application. So bidders, the idea behind bidders is mostly those same styles, or the same idea behind those styles, so that once you start a project, you throw bidders in there, and it gives you a nice looking site right from the start. But instead of it sitting in a gem somewhere, or somewhere where you can't touch it, you actually throw it into your project files, and it helps you get started faster. So it has things like a variables folder or file, extends folder where you can dump all your extends. Same thing with mixins. It gives you base typography, forms, and stuff like that. And the nice thing about it is, so you throw it into your own project, your new project, and you can rip things out, make it your own, and basically it becomes the start, a great starting point.
Yeah. And now I was looking through the commit history of a lot of the products we're talking about right now, and it looks like bidders is your baby. Is that right?
Yeah, it has turned into my baby.
Yeah, you have the most commits out of by far in bidders. That's awesome. And the website, the front-facing GH Pages websites for each of these are really nice and easy to understand as well. So I'll link to those down in the descriptions below for everybody watching. And then what is refills?
So we've gotten to the point where a lot of people are coming to us and asking, they see what's happening with Foundation and Bootstrap, and they see all these components that are pre-made. A lot of developers who are coming to these preset frameworks are looking for these pre-made components so they can just kind of plug it in and go.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, that's what refills is. It's just a bunch of components that you can copy and paste the code to, and have a header navbar, or a main featured area, or a section of 3 featured areas, a drop down, or breadcrumbs, and it's basically it's styled so that it looks really nice, but minimally styled, so that it's somewhat easy to kind of rebrand it or redesign it so that it looks great for your site.
Right. So would you say that the refills are what they evolved as a competitor to the components of Bootstrap and Foundation?
Yeah, I'd like to think that they'll start to be competitors to both of those.
Cool.
So like we're taking a different approach to both Bootstrap and Foundation, where like they include everything, and we want you to like only include the things that you want. So like if you want, you start off with Bourbon. If you need a grid layout, you put in neat. If you're starting out on a new project, you use bitters. If you need these components, you copy and paste the ones that you need instead of just having all of them.
Yeah. So one thing that was like when I was exploring it for myself, I kind of got my head around this eventually, but Bourbon, neat, and bitters are all things that you install. Like they're defined packages. You put the directories where they should go and link them all in, and then you can use them. Whereas the refills are these components where you go to your website and cut and paste the markup and the styles, and if need be the JavaScript, and you can use them one by one. You have to like cut and paste each one that you want, being selective about it.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought that was really interesting, as opposed to, and I guess this gets back to what you were saying initially, that the weight, or just maybe not the page weight, but the cumbersomeness, is that a word, cumbersomeness? The like the cumbersomeness of something like Bootstrap or Foundation, wherein all of these things are included from the get-go unless you say otherwise.
Yep. Awesome.
Okay, so I think that's going to be it for this little interview. I'm so grateful that I have you here to discuss this. I think it'll make understanding and appreciating the work that you guys at Thoughtbot have done go a lot further to the people who watch this video. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It was nice to be able to kind of explain what all those bourbon stuff does.
Yeah, excellent. All right, well, this concludes this segment of the video, and now we're going to go look at how to use these tools that we've just discussed here with Kyle. Kyle, thank you so much. Take care, man.
Yep, thank you. Bye.
Here's a fun way to think of Sass and Bourbon. If this guy, this little Steve Rogers here, is CSS, when he gets injected and becomes buff, he becomes Sass, right? Now if you add Bourbon, you're adding his whole Avengers team on it. You got bitters and refills and neat, and together they create an awesome world-saving team of bitter and plus extensions. I'm starting off with a simple file called example and a really simple index.html here. I'm going to show it to you. It's just it's bare bones HTML outline, and we have one link to a style sheet called app.css. So we don't have anything else in this directory, so we're going to have to make my app.css right now. And we're going to do that by creating a folder called CSS. And in that folder, I'm going to create a new file called app.sass. Now I'm going to use app.sass to be the endpoint for all of my Sass. It's all going to be compiled right to here and then output to app.css, which is linked to in my document. If I write body and say background is going to be CCC, like a light gray, we need to find a way for this background to be compiled into a app.css. Now the way that we're going to do that is we're going to install Sass on our machine, and then from there we're going to go in and install the things we've been talking about, Bourbon, bitters, neat, and also we're going to use refills. So starting with Sass, I'm going to say sudo install, gem install, Sass, and my password is, just kidding, I'm not telling you. Cool. Great, we have Sass installed. Now I'm going to do the same thing for Bourbon. Sudo gem install Bourbon. I'll wait while that installs, and looks like it's all good. So let's get Sass running. Open a new tab, and I'm going to need a CD into my working directory. So that's going to be my desktop, and example is what I call this thing, and then CSS. Now that I'm in there, I'm going to write Sass --watch. I'm going to identify my Sass file, app.sass, and I'm going to say colon to identify the output file. I want it to be app.css, and go. Okay, it looks like it's all good. It wrote the new app.css right here, background CCC, and when I refresh my browser window right here, I can see in the background it's this nice light gray. And I can also notice that Sass is watching this directory for changes, and I can stop at any time by pressing Control-C. So if I change this to pink, then my browser window will be a background of pink. Pretty easy. Okay. Oops, that was the wrong thing. So let me show you how Sass will overwrite my style. So I changed the CSS to pink to give you this browser, but so I did the big no-no. You don't ever want to change the body. You want to change the Sass, because when I ran Sass again, or rather when I saved my Sass, and the Sass application in my command line rewrote my output CSS. So now my body is green. So, all right, I'm going to change this background. Actually, I don't even care what the background is. The first thing I wanted to show you guys is Bourbon and how that works. To understand Bourbon and to work with Bourbon, we have to install it. The first thing I have to do is cd into my projects folder, which is on the desktop, and it's called example and CSS. And I have to say Bourbon install. Cool. Now when I go over here to my project folder, I can see that Bourbon is a new folder inside of my CSS. Now this would be okay if I wanted to kind of keep it small, but I want to also show you guys how I architect my Sass to allow for bigger projects to happen later on. What I want to do is since this Bourbon is not my code, it's a plugin that I don't want to be altering too much, I want to shove that into a folder called 0 plugins. Plugins. And there's the plugins. I also want to create a few of these folders here. A new folder called one base. That shouldn't be in my plugins folder. It should be in my CSS. And I want to make another folder called 2 modules. And the final one of this type is 3 layouts. Now this is great. Inside of these, I can put a file called, I'm going to call this one plugins dir. .sass, and I'm going to do the same thing for each one of these major folders. This one is going to be called base-dir.sass, modules -dir.sass, and finally layouts -dir.sass. Now I use these directory files as a way to import everything in the directory, and that way when I'm writing my app.sass, I can do something as simple as import what do I want to import? 0-plugins /plugins-dir, and I'm going to do this 4 times. This is going to be base, this is going to be modules, and it's going to be layouts. Same here, layouts, maybe 3, 2, and 1, base, and modules. Cool, so these are sucking in, or rather importing these files here, and then when I want to add to any of these types of directories, I can just add it to the smaller directory and I don't have to worry about going into my bigger one and kind of finding where it wants to go, because honestly these can get quite big. But we're going to start small, and now the first thing we'll do is import bourbon / bourbon. Okay. So let's take a look at our Sass compiling. It looks like everything compiled just fine. And look at our output CSS. Great, we have a blank page. That is fantastic. The reason I'm happy about that is because Bourbon is a library of mix-ins and functions and helpers, add-ons. So it's not actually going to render down to any CSS without initializing it yourself. Like, it's not going to do anything on its own. It needs to be, these are just tools in your tool belt to use at any one time, and they're not going to add any bulk to your project. And I really like that about it. I really like that about it. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is show you a few of my favorite bits in Bourbon. So let me start by creating a layout, a new file called home.sass, and I want to import this. Import home, and now home should be imported. Get rid of these other guys. Okay, and then in my markup here, I'm going to create a few objects, boxes, and div class box. All right, and then here's a paragraph with some where is it? Okay, here we are. Just with some lorem in it. And there we go. Okay, so rendering, which looks like we have a paragraph with some lorem. Let me show you quickly how I can manipulate these things quickly with my Bourbon. So the first thing I wanted to show you is the size function. So, or the size mix-in. Box size 100 pixels. I want to make the background pink and margin 20. Okay, now we see that the size, let's look at our rendered CSS. The size outputs our height and width really easily. And now this is not rocket science, but it's just saving time, which I really like about it. I had to write, what did I have to write? I had to write size 100 pixels, and it knew that I was talking about height and width. Now that's really cool, and it's even better when it gets to something larger, like something that can have 5 CSS class rules, 5 CSS rules to accomplish. So something like this. Position absolute, let's say 100 from the top, auto from the right, auto from the bottom, and 200 from the left. Now this positioning, see how it this positioning was really easy to write here in the Sass, and it was just in one line, and it's really easy to read and edit as well. But in CSS, it's 5 lines, and again, it's not rocket science, but we're just trying to save some time and complexity, and this is exactly what Bourbon does for us, and that really makes me excited and happy. In fact, it's one of the first things I started using Bourbon to do. And again, that's why I like it, because it is an add-on library. force you to use any of it right away, and it doesn't alter any of the code that you've written previously. So if you have a big old library or a big old code base, you could add on Bourbon today and it wouldn't change anything and it wouldn't make anything not work, and then you can just sprinkle it in as you go because it's because it's just a library of mix-ins. Another one that's really cool is that they have predefined font strings. So if I go to that paragraph and I say font family, where's the Y? Font family, dollar Helvetica. I could see that they've changed all to Helvetica right here, but it's not just Helvetica. The output CSS is going to have Helvetica Neue, Helvetica Roboto, Arial, and sans serif. So it's a whole backup string as well. I have backups for all of these font declarations. And this is cool. If I look in the documentation for Bourbon, our font families, we have Georgia, Lucidia Grande, Monospace, and Verdana, which all kind of have a lot of their relative backups. So Tahoma is a great backup for Lucidia Grande, but not really necessarily Helvetica. So that's a really great, really cool thing to do. Okay, so let's go back to here. I made this box pink earlier. Let's make it red. And that's a nice cherry red there. There are a lot of color functions built into Sass, but Tint is one that Bourbon adds, and it's really easy to use. Just Tint, and I'm going to say Tint 40%, and then when I look at my red there, it's a nice, it's just knocked down a few notches, and it's not as saturated, so it's cool. Tint means you're adding a little white. So okay, let's take all of these boxes, get rid of this positioning here. Let's float them all right or left. Yeah, let's see how they work. Oh, look at, yeah, they floated left just like I wanted, but I forgot to, I didn't want my text paragraph to be on the right of all of them. I wanted them to break like a block element just right down here. So I need to have some type of clear fix built in there, and I can go into the parent right here, boxes, and throw a clear fix on that element. That will help that paragraph break down. So boxes plus clear fix. Done. And thank you Bourbon. Really nice, really nice. Okay, there are a few other things. I'm not going to type them out, but I'll show you an example. There's tons and tons of awesome things, but here are like some of the wilder ones. Timing functions. So we know that CSS has Bezier timing, easing built right into it. But here are like predefined Bezier timing sequences. So ease in, out, back. Watch as I hover over these. Watch this blue guy jump around. So he's going to go a little bit over it, and then he's going to end where he should be. Some of them will go fast and then slow down. I mean, this is all just these are like predefined easing Bezier calculations. So those are really cool to use. I've used them quite a few times when I just want I don't want my animation or transition to be linear or ease in out. I want it to be something really unique. You can just pop one of these in, pop a few of them in, and try different ones, and you're going to get something that people don't see every day. That's really nice. And another one, you can easily change your pixel calculations over to M's, which is pretty cool. I like that. And you can even set the baseline within the function that the M is calculated based on. So that's pretty cool. I really like that. Okay, and this is Bourbon. It's tons and tons of things. I recommend going through, just sprinkling them into your workflow as you go about your work. I think you're going to really enjoy it. But next, I want to show you Neat. Bourbon Neat is the lightweight semantic grid framework for Sass. So it's really easy to use. I mean, when it says semantic, it's saying that it allows you not to have all of these bloated, class-heavy divs wrapping everything around just to get things lined up. So the example here is they have a section, a side, article inside of a section. So for the section, they say include the outer container, just make that the container wrapper, And then for the aside, make it 3 columns and make the article 9 columns wide. So this will be 3 columns, that's the aside, and the article 9 columns wide. It's pretty easy. Let me show you how to install Bourbon. I'm going to jump back over to my my terminal here, and remember that I'm in CSS, but I've added these really specific directories. So I want to cd into 0.plugins, and now I'm in plugins, and I want to do a sudo gem install neat. Great. And now that I'm in plugins, I can install it. So I say neat install. And when I go over to plugins, I can see that neat is installed. Now I need to go into my directory and say neat. Cool. Neat is really cool. Let's go back to our example and see what we got going on here. Let's take home.sass. Let's take these boxes, and I want to make this the container. No, we call it outer container. And then I want to take my boxes, and I want to say that they should be span columns. Let's look at the docs here. Span columns, yeah. They should be span columns. They should each be 4 because there's 3 of. Oh no, there's, I don't know how many of there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, let's make 4, and they can span column 3 because 3 times 4 is 12, and we're a 12 column grid. Great. So we have 4 columns here in which we could just, put any type of junk we want, like you do with columns. Now, one of the cool things about Neat is that they have this thing. Let's go into settings, visual grid. They have this thing called visual grid. This is cool. I'm going to turn this on by typing true here, and when I refresh, I can see that there's this awesome visual grid that I'm working with. So if I put this paragraph here into an outer container, I wouldn't normally do it like this, but whatever. I can see that it's lining up nicely with these, this visual grid here. And I can even take this visual grid and make it go to the front, and change its color to light blue. See that? That's awesome, huh? So it's a lot of awesome tools built right into Bourbon Neat, and it helps you, have a nice semantic grid from the get-go without having to go into my markup. Look at my markup, nothing has changed. It's really semantic and easy to read, especially when you're showing it to other people and, you have other developers working with you. And it's a really nice way to keep things clean and easy. Okay, so let's jump into bidders. Bidders are a little bit different than Bourbon and Neat in the way that they do give you output CSS from the start. And what they do is, you can think of it kind of as, in like Bootstrap's CSS properties. It's going to define the styles for your forms here, your tables, and your other things, your code, sup, all of these different types of things, block quote, that need styling, and even down to things like flash messages, your headlines, buttons, and things like that. So let's install. What is this? Oh, this is the wrong place. Let's install bidders. We're going to say sudo gem install bidders. Cool, successful. So we're already in a plugins directory, and I'm going to say bidders install. bitters files installed to /bitters. Great. So when I go back to my plugins directory, I see bitters is there. I should go to my plugins directory file and say import bitters /bitters. Now, a word about bitters, it doesn't include a reset or a normalize, which I'm going to do myself. I found a minified normalize. I'm going to create a new file, call it normalize.scss. And I'm going to make it a SCSS so I can just paste it in and save, and I'm going to import it here at dash done. Okay, cool. And Ruby tells me that plugins. Oh, I spelled normalize wrong here. Normalize. There we go. And okay, we're all good. My output app CSS is going to have normalize in it. And actually, that was my. This is the code for my my bourbon neat grid. So let's turn that off. Visual grid off, false. And I'll go back to our file here. Okay, good. Okay, our resulting rendered CSS will have normalize at the top, and then did we import bourbon already? Or sorry, do we import bitters? Okay, bitters. And then after normalize, we'll have bitters, which will be styling for things like my H1s. Are going to be Helvetica, text rendering, all these kind of things that we want to make sure we do, but they're just kind of so tedious and to do, and especially if you go project to project pretty quickly. These are going to be a great baseline for us to start from. Now, bitters is going to have a variables sheet where we can go in and remember bourbon had Helvetica. What if we change this to mono? Is it mono or monospace? I think it's monospace. No, it'll be monospace. It's fun, huh? Cool. That'll be for the whole site. So our variables sheet is really powerful, and you can define the different colors that are going to be used, like the base text link color, the borders, and all this. You can define what's going to be used in bitters to set the bases for for your file or for all of your defaults. So in the example here, we have the headings, paragraphs, lists, styles, form elements. All of this stuff is gonna be styled and look great. It's like the baseline standardized styling. So for any new element you want to add a form, it's going to look good. It's not going to look like the default browser styles. All right, and the last bit we want to look at is something called refills. Refills are a little different than bourbon, bitters, and neat in the way that they are thought out navigation patterns. Okay, so how we're going to use those, let's just close the majority of these things here, get rid of these boxes and go into our home Sass and just get rid of all this stuff. Okay, now these patterns, so let me show you what I'm talking about. We're going to go into our body and I'm just going to copy the code and paste. Now I need to style it, so this is going to be a module, new file, top nav dot CSS. And in the modules directory, I'm going to say import top nav. Now when I go to my rendered file, I should have this beautiful navigation across the top. Awesome. There's a little problem here, and that is actually because Bourbon was just updated, and this needs not to be 0, it needs to be auto. I know that because I messed around with this a little bit earlier. Bourbon used to allow you to use that position mix-in and say if you wanted it to be skipped or auto, you would write 0. Now you have to write out auto explicitly. So now when we refresh, that will be where it should be. what that means is that the refill just needs to catch up with the newest version of Bourbon, which came out just last week. So it's not a big worry. It was just recently. So the next module I want to grab from refills is going to be this cool hero unit. We'll look at the code here, copy it, put it into my index.html, copy the code, copy the styles, a module called hero.css, and import hero into my directory navigation, hero, and save. So when I go back to my example, I'm going to have this really nice hero unit. And again, look at, I have the defaults that I put in bitters are flowing throughout, and I have a monospace type in my hero. That's pretty cool. Now these are really easy to change. This is the icon here. I can go into hero unit, and I want to kind of change this background out it. So here's the background, and I have this cool like balloon thingy. Put that in and easily update. There you go. So nice. Let's see what else we got. Ooh, these are really nice. These are good for sales copy. Copy the markup. Again, this is just the pattern that we're following, and all these things are easily editable. Copy the styling. I want to create a new module. I'm going to call these like bullet points. P-O-I-N-T-S, points. And I'm going to import the points. And then we're going to check it out. There we go. Okay, so when we notice that we don't have, the pleasing margins that we were hoping to have automatically, and even though these points are responsive, they're just kind of like, I don't know, they don't look that great right by default because they're crashing right here up against this other module. And you know what? At first you'd be like, oh, it didn't work automatically, but then you think, oh, that's actually preferable, because you can never tell where you're going to put these modules. I mean, what if this showed up inside of a like a overlay modal or something, and you need the margins to be a little bit different. So that's good, but we do need to go in and kind of carve out the place for them. Now this is different than the modules. I wouldn't go in and edit the modules of points directly. I would go into the layout that this page is in. So this is the home page. I'm going to go back into that layout.sass and deal with these. And so like, what are these guys called? They're called bullets or something. Yeah, bullets is the class. Oops. Meant to copy and pasted. So home, I'm going to say bullets. Padding 50. Let's say 100. 0. So they have a nice pattern from the top, but also we're kind of like crashing right here where I don't think we should. Now this is where I would use neat, and I would say you're going to be an outer container. And that's just making the max width 960, and it could be centered with margins. So that's why I used padding right here, not margin, because I wanted to make sure that I was going to have the ability to center these guys with a outer container. Cool. And that's all we need to do to fix that out, and that's layout contextualized. Actually, it should be something like .home, .bullets, and then under home, the HTML, you would say class home. And you would start your home, you would scope all of these styles into home. Oh, this is when you're thinking big though, so it doesn't matter, whatever. Cool, next one is An article. Oh, these are cool. I like this a lot because you can go in and choose what style of articles. Now these are going to be scoped. These styles and such are going to be scoped to the article itself, which is really handy because even though I've said that I want my site to be mono styled, I can, you know, I'm going to choose this slab. I can have, you know, whatever styles are attached to this article itself. So I'm going to show the code, grab the markup here, and throw that in my index.html file, and grab the styles, and I'm going to make a new module called article, called article.css, and that's going to have my article in it, and I need to again import that into my modules directory. Article. So, let's take a look, and here's my article heading. Cool. It's styled just how I would like it. It's really beautifully styled, but it's not centered in the it's not styled in the context of the layout. So this layout is home, so I'm gonna go back to my home styling and say article, and you are going to be a what is it called, an outer container, and all of your children are going to be they're going to span columns, and let's say 8 columns, and let's move you guys with a shift 2 columns so you guys are nice centered. How does that look? Oh, that looks good. That's really great. Okay, let's go refill. There's a lot of other things. Let's skip a few. Cards, these are cool. Comment styles, comment modules, tabs. Goodness, tables. Oh, these are awesome. Vertical tabs. Wow, that's cool. These are cool. Oh, that's even cooler. Yeah, let's grab this. Show the code. Copy the markup. Put it in my index. And these are all, like, you know, all the content and these icons, these are all customizable. I want to call this module grid, square grid? Grid items? Grid items. Grid items. Oh dear. Grid items dot CSS. Okay, and I'm going to throw that in my directory. And save. What have we here? I'm assuming it's going to be full width. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's really great. It's full width though, and I did like the look of it being, you know, kind of not full width, I guess you'd say. So what is this called? It's called grid items? Grid items lines. In the context of my layout, I'm going to say that grid item lines, you need to be an outer container. Cool. Nice, nice, nice. Now you can change all these content. You can change the width and the spans of these grids. This is cool. Article gets a little close there. Well, that's okay. All right, let's close this up. Let's put a footer here. Oh, there's a footer. Show the code. Copy the markup, and after my grid lines, put my footer. Module, create a new module called footer.scss, and copy it. Copy my footer. Looks good, right? Good footer. Directory. Oops. And we should be good with the footer. Cool. So I'm going to say those grid items in my home, they need a little space below. So padding bottom 100 pixels. Ooh, margin bottom. That revealed this line there, but that I don't want. So margin bottom will take that out. That's just because of the way that's. Anyway, cool. So this is a pretty good start to a good looking website, and that was all done just using real refills. I didn't, really design or code any of this markup. And the cool thing is that it's all customizable, really simply put. And all of the things I wanted, and none of the things I did not want, which is not an option when you're working with Bootstrap or Foundation.
Congratulations, you did it. You made it through that entire video. I'm surprised that I made that entire video. It could have been like 4 videos. I think that if you start using Bourbon right away, you will enjoy it just as much as I do. So thank you so much to Kyle for the interview, and thank you to you for watching this video. I'd really like to know what you think about Bourbon and the things that we introduced today. Leave a comment down below, and if you liked this video, please share it with your friends. Also, I have my own channel that I run every new video every Monday on, and yeah, if you want to see more of my junk, go check it out. It's Dev Tips. Anyhow, talk to you next month. I do a video the first Monday of every month here on PHP Academy, and a big thank you to Alex for hosting this video. All right, everybody, take care. Bye.